Yeah, everybody needs a little extra sleep.
Yeah. Although my daughter said she thought she would tell them, you know, they have to get up at the same time. That'll be her job tomorrow morning. It won't be mine. Oh, there it is in the chat. Perfect. Oh, no. Go down. No, no, you can't visit. No. I have a cat that wants to sit on my lap whenever I sit down. Not happening. Let's see. We're up to 13. Hi, Dave.
Hello, how you doing?
Good. Oh, there's Chris Darby. Hi, Chris.
Hello.
Oh, there you are.
Here I am.
4 more minutes.
Chris, since you just joined us, the link for the Zoom meeting for the town is in the chat.
Okay.
It'll be easier to find that way than to find it off of the town webpage. Hi, Laurel. Tim Lavoie's here.
Hi,
Hi,
Meg.
Laurel.
How you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right, thanks.
I think we're waiting for Lauren Christensen. Not yet. Hi, Sean. How are you?
I'm good.
And
How are you?
Justin's here. Good.
Hi.
You know, we're going to go over to listen to Mrs. Bransfield and Dr. Britton and then come back.
Sean's your dad staying out of trouble?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I meant to ask you, did he, I bumped into him at the reservoir one time.
Oh, really?
I think I was cross-country skiing, and he asked me about crossing the creek, and then I never saw him again. So I assume he made it back home alive.
Yeah, he did.
I figured.
That creek at the reservoir can be quite treacherous sometimes.
Somebody
And-
needs to do something about that. That's a hazard.
Well, you can't go all the way around the reservoir when it's flooding, as some friends of mine and I tried to do, and we were tempted to walk in, but you never know how deep the water really is up there. So on that back side, it was pretty flooded.
You got to hike in with your waders in your backpack.
Yeah.
I see. That's what it is. Or bring my dog and I can ride on her back at 97.5 pounds.
Right.
You can scamper across the lawn. It's, you know. Somebody
Yeah,
needs
you
to
know.
get in there and move that bridge back up.
Did the bridge
Did it
move
drop?
recently? Did it drop down? Is that
Oh
what
yeah,
it is?
like
Oh,
quite a while.
I haven't been up
Yeah.
there since last summer. But last summer it was pretty flooded.
It's a hot mess.
It sounds like an Eagle Scout project.
I was gonna
or
say,
a
I think
capstone project.
that was an Eagle Scout project.
I
for
think
so,
some
too.
reason.
Okay.
Yeah, Andrew Donahue did the other two bridges. This is like the main one, and it's there. It's just falling
Oh,
out.
my gavel.
I think
All right.
Sharon
I'm
is trying to.
gaveling
Right.
the meeting
Gavel
to
isn't a
order.
word.
Calling the meeting to order.
Yes, I'm going to call the meeting to order and
And I'll make a
see-
motion to adjourn.
to recess.
Yes, to recess. Thank you.
All right.
Recess.
So we'll recess our meeting. We're going to go to the public hearing on the town budget, and we will see you all back here after. The link is in chat if you
Do
need
we
it.
need a second? Do we need a second?
I'll
Sure.
second it.
Thank you, Tim. Okay, see
Sure.
you
All
over
in
there.
favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Okay,
Aye.
great.
Go to Zoom A.
To list will be March 17, tomorrow night, March 23, March 24, all starting at 7 p.m., all on Zoom A. We will have, as a Board of Selectmen, we're scheduled to have deliberations on March 30 and 31, also at 7 p.m. And then expect the adoption of the budget on or about April 7. That is not a requirement by the charter, so the selectmen may choose to adopt at that time, either sooner than that time or later. But we do have to have a budget completed so that we can publish it and be available for the town meeting, which is March 3, a Monday. And then the referendum, which is an all day, it'll be in person and using absentee, Monday, May 10th. So what I'd like to do to get started is to do my introduction of the general budget. And after me, Dr. Charles Britton, our superintendent of schools, will be giving us the highlights of the Board of Education budget. He and I had both agreed that it will be, as I said, brief and to the point, and we're interested after our presentations on getting comments, questions, some of which we may be able to answer, others we may wait and answer as the workshops occur, depending on the question. So with that, I will also ask you if you have a comment, if you have a question, or you just want to talk, please use the chat function, which is found at the bottom of your screen. I have an assistant, Nick Dawson, who is helping, and Nick will be reading those chats when we get to the portion where we will be reading the comments and answering questions. I'll also point out that many of our selectmen are on the call. I know that Jim Tripp is here. Rick Shar, thought I saw Ralph Zampano. And there's, not sure if the other selectmen are here. Mr. Hernandez is here. said Ralph. I'm not sure I see the others. I'm sure they'll be joining us as time goes on. So Nick, if you could start screen sharing, I'd appreciate it. Okay, so I thought I'd start with a nice overview picture. Selectman Jim Tripp took this picture from his, I guess he took it from a camera high up in the sky, known as a drone. And it really is a nice picture of Portland, our river, and I thought it was a nice way to introduce the Town of Portland 2021-2022 budget. Next slide. The biggest impact, and I think all of you will recognize what this impact is COVID-19. COVID-19 has affected us greatly. It's a unique time. It's been a very difficult year, both as a town official as well as an individual. And I think each of us can attest to the difficulties associated with this pandemic. The budget that I'm presenting will be in relation to this pandemic, hope for a recovery. And many of the things that we're going to talk about are going to help our town recover and sustain from this scourge of COVID-19. Next slide. So we do have an American Rescue Plan, and many of you have been following this. Our President Biden, and our Congress has passed the American Rescue Plan. Specifically, and I'm pleased to announce, the bill, the law requires that these dollars come directly to the town. So general government is expected to receive $914,958. The Board of Education for the town of Portland will receive $939,000. And these, while they will pass through the state, because we're not an entitlement town like the cities are, the state is not allowed by law to take any of our money. Many other times when you get pass-throughs from a state, they take a percentage of the dollars. But I'm pleased to announce what I understand is that these dollars will come directly to the town of Portland. I'm also understanding that they will come in terms of payments. It will not be one lump sum. I believe it will be at least 2 payments that will come to the town. The utilization of these dollars and the details for the usage are beginning to be released. Connecticut Conference of Municipalities did send us an email and made available the parameters associated with the usage of this money. It's something that we will be discussing in great detail and following the guidance by the letter of the law, and make certain that all the dollars are accounted for. These are precious, it's few, but it is needed. And it is something we take very seriously, and we will work together to best utilize these dollars that all of us deserve and all of us will make sure is put to good use. Next slide. Within my proposed budget, and I want to thank Tom Robinson, who's on the call, who helped me. We spent hours and hours on this budget, putting it together, and he's been a great help and will continue to be helping us as we go through the budget season. The Board of Education's request for operating funds is met in this budget. The health insurance numbers that the board had originally given as their request have been updated. And that's because Charles and I met with our insurance broker, and we were able to reduce the amount of the increase from approximately 10% down to 7.5% increase. So that means the dollars that had been in at 10% in the education budget were reduced by the board, as well as in this budget that I produced, the cost of the Chromebooks, of which we estimate about 500 will be purchased for our students in Portland, is moved out of the operating budget of the Board of Education and into the town's capital fund. So those dollars by the Board of Education were also reduced in their budget request. Next slide. Within the capital request, there were several requests from both general government and Board of Education that are not included in the budget. What is included are the Chromebooks, as I just mentioned, for the Board of Education, as well as $50,000 that will be added to approximately $30,000 that is already in the budget, for a total of approximately $80,000 usage for removal of oil tanks at the various schools. Next slide. Within general government, I just want to highlight a few changes and a few impacts of things that will be happening in the new fiscal year starting July 1. Within the planning department, we are beginning to see some real activity at Brainerd Place. And in speaking with Mary Dickerson, who's been our development planner, and looking at next year and the needs of that department, this budget will have a promotion within that department to a full planner that I fully anticipate Mary will be functioning with an additional 5 hours a week. We'll bring her to 35 hours a week, up from 30. And the zoning enforcement officer will go from what is in the budget at 15 hours a week to at least 24 hours. There's been a request by the department, depending on the needs, and we're beginning to see more of the needs, of an increase of the zoning enforcement officer, and we will address that as we proceed in our budget workshops. Within the Chatham Health District, I think they have done just a tremendous job for our greater community, all of the 6 towns within the district. Under the very capable leadership of Russ Melmed, we've been able to really fight this disease and fight it well. And we've had a great deal of cooperation from our library as well as our senior center in making certain that we were able to host vaccination clinics with Chatham Health District distributing the vaccinations, and that's ongoing. It's a critical piece of local government is local public health. And our Chatham Health District is doing a superb job for us. And in light of the need that will continue, they are asking for approximately a 4.1% increase, which the Board of Health has approved and which is in the budget you have in front of you from my office. In terms of senior services, this past year, we've had a very capable person, Carol Ravicki, who is our assistant, who has been communicating with seniors mostly by telephone, some email, home visits, and making certain that rides have been available in a COVID-safe way. My plan, and I hope all of our plan, is that our seniors are vaccinated, they will be returning to the senior center, and they will also be in need of some healing due to the great isolation and some of the health difficulties associated with COVID-19. So the budget returns a full-time person to the senior center as a director. I want to thank Mary Pont for her very capable leadership in a part-time role in assisting with the administration of senior services over the past few years, and at the same time, her very capable leadership within the Youth Services Department. In the budget, we will have a full-time senior director and, of course, a full-time youth services director, because this pandemic affects everyone, whether they're young, middle-aged, or senior. And we need to make certain that we are addressing the needs of our community and that we are prepared. Next slide, please. Within the general capital budget, we have an addition to what I mentioned for Board of Education, implementation of the Police Accountability Bill. And one of the key components is to buy body cams and dash cams for our 12 sworn officers that protect our town. The cost of that is estimated to be about $213,000 that will pay for approximately 15 body cams and 15 dash cams, as well as up to 5 years of storage of all the data that will be produced as a result of those cameras. I testified last week in front of a legislative committee through Zoom at the state that is proposing that the state increase their percentage of a grant for this activity. Right now, it's at approximately 30% of that $200,000 number. I hope that it goes up. Of course, 100% would be wonderful. And I hope that at least 50% or more is reimbursed to communities. There's also discussion about the Department of Administrative Services in Hartford making certain that the quality, the quantity, and the ability to produce and get these cameras is available to everyone on a statewide basis. It makes sense for quantity purchasing of these matters, of these equipment, as well as a statewide ability to put all of that data in a data facility. It's a complicated endeavor. It's a very necessary endeavor. And I think everyone is in agreement this will make an improvement to services from our communities throughout the state. Also in the general capital budget is the sidewalk improvement grant, which you may have read about. The town was successful in writing a grant for a $525,000 sidewalk improvement grant. This is through the Connecticut Department of Transportation, and it will allow us to make improvements on Freestone Avenue, onto both sides of High Street at the most southern end. We will have a bus depot built near the Middlesex Hospital offices, as well as you go across the street at Cumberland Farms. There will be sidewalks to actually step onto instead of dirt. And those sidewalks will be in front of what we hope will be eventually a visitor center and a historic use of the great railroad depot that's there. The sidewalks will continue around Airline Avenue and go down Riverside Street to Chatham Court. This is a huge improvement, and for $525,000 in actual build, it'll be a great improvement to our community. Within the capital budget, we're going to talk a little bit more about the capital lease. The capital lease program is a successful endeavor that Tom and I have worked on for several years now with our Public Works Department, Police Department, schools, and others, library, and so forth. There's a new lease proposed in the budget. And as I said, we'll go into some of the details on that. In technology, we will have an increase in that line item, and it's to replace our backup solution. We had a few years ago a ransomware attack, and it is critical for all of the finance and data that the town has that we have a very, very secure backup system. This is a requirement that will occur every 4 years, and this is the 4th year of that replacement cycle. Next slide, please. I'm going to go into some details on the capital lease. As I mentioned earlier, the Board of Education Chromebooks, they'll be purchased through a lease agreement. The Portland Fire Department has tried for several times to get a grant from FEMA and the American Firefighters Grant. And while they got close, it was never awarded to us. However, the tanker that we have is a 1984 truck. This truck needs to be replaced for the safety and security of not only people, but also property. East of Route 17, many of our properties are not served by the public water system. And if there's a fire and a need to have water, this tanker truck is critical, and we owe it to our citizens and our businesses that the tanker truck be available in good shape and that our firefighters are able to put out those fires. Within the grounds department, we have, as you know, great pride in our recreation as well as our schools and the fields. And we are proposing that we purchase a pickup truck, trailer, another mower, and some attachments for the Ventrac equipment that we purchased a few years ago. For the police, in the lease is our 2 equipped cruisers with laptops. For highway, an excavator with grapple. And we found the need for this in all these horrible storms that we've been having. And we have in the past rented this piece of equipment to assist us in debris removal. And having it on hand will certainly save money in the long run and also be a safe piece of equipment for our public works department. We also have in the schedule a dump truck that we use in many, many days of the year, including snow removal and other activities. Within our resource recovery, we do use a roll-off truck with a container, and that too is aged, and it's important for its replacement. So those are the capital lease details, the numbers of which we will go through during our workshop. Next slide, please. Within the other funds, I want to highlight some of the things that are going on. Other funds, as you know, are not totally funded by the general fund. These funds get fees, and they also charge fees for certain activities within their operations. So within the Parks and Recreation Department, my proposal is to move the Kids Blast program from the Youth Services Department, where it is now, into the Parks and Recreation Department. We want to reinvigorate. It needs to be reborn. Our Kids Blast program at Brownstone Intermediate School has been a very successful program in that under the leadership of Mary Pont, it has been able to really supply the needs for our families, not only for a little bit of homework time and snack time, but an important component of the ability for children to socialize in a safe environment while their parents are at work. Within the Park and Rec Department, we have individuals who have, number one, already worked in the Kids Blast program, and our director has been involved in programming before and after school programming for youngsters. I believe also with hopefully the end of the COVID, that we will be able to see an enhanced recreational component to this program. It will enhance our youngsters' ability to get out and play and have some fun and return to the ways of childhood that are so important in a safe environment. So that actually creates a little more revenue for the Parks and Recreation Department to be able to do the many, many good things that we plan for them to do as we come out of COVID for all ages. Within the sewer department, the good news is that some of our debt is retired, so we don't have to pay for that debt anymore. And instead, we are able to use those dollars to improve the capital within the sewer fund. So there'll be some suggestions for how to improve our sewer plant. Within the water division also has many needs. We are preparing for the Metropolitan District contract, which will retire in a few years. This has been a 30-year contract since 1996. Rates have skyrocketed from the Metropolitan District Commission. And I was reviewing some of the numbers. In 10 years, the amount of the cost of water, I'm not saying I don't even know if it's the same exact gallonage, but the amount that was in the budget went up 97% in 10 years. And since 2016, the fees paid to MDC have gone up 75%. So in the last 4 years, those numbers have skyrocketed. And we're chasing those numbers all the time. Very difficult for our department. And we have a $250,000 grant that we fought hard for many years. Finally, it came to fruition. Senator Needleman helped us with this, and Lori Matthew, who is the head of the water division in the Department of Public Health, as well as some of the people that work for her, are working with us. And we will be putting out a request for qualifications to have a consultant at long last to help us as we proceed toward a better way to deliver water that is so precious to our customers. Within the animal control division, we are looking and we have available some of the spaces that are there, some of the kennels for other animals. And we are looking at the possibility of not only being a shelter for dogs, but we are open to being able to assist with cats. And so I'm working with Karen Peruccio, our certified animal control officer, and working with some of the animal rescue operations that are throughout our state, as well as talking to some neighboring towns and making available some of the kennels that are there available for animals. We do have we had an agreement with the city of Middletown. Middletown has gone to a bigger facility and they no longer are a tenant in the facility. The landfill closure, we are going to be spending $15,000 for required environmental monitoring, and we'll be doing that next year as well. We have an RFP out for renting the top of the landfill, and that rent will be for a solar array. And that we will see probably by the end of this month, the beginning of next month. We have a consultant who is working with us, and they have issued that RFP, and we will know the interest and be getting rent from that successful contract with a solar array. In terms of open space, this year, we still need to put in the $50,000 that's required by ordinance. The selectmen, in an effort to meet the ends of our budget last year, had removed that from the operating budget. It's back in the budget this year. So $50,000 goes to open space. Next slide, please. I want to end my portion by reminding everyone that there will be additional details talked and analyzed and discussed March 17, 23, and 24 in our workshops on Zoom A. Deliberations March 30, 31, and then adoption by the board April 7. All of the workshops and the deliberations start at 7 o'clock on the 7th. I believe that'll be a regularly scheduled meeting that will start at 7:30. But the formal adoption typically by the selectmen will be at that date. Last slide. The town meeting referendum will be May 10th, and the town meeting precedes that on Monday, May 3rd. If there's not sufficient numbers, of which would be over 300 people, to amend the budget goes from the town meeting to the referendum the following Monday for the vote. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Charles Britton. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. You guys all hear me okay?
I can.
Well, I'm in the studio here in the high school. It's a little blinding. Dave, I sent you my slides. Can you pull them up for us so I can go through the slide deck? Okay, so thank you for giving me this opportunity to talk to you a little bit about the budget and the priorities for the Board of Ed this year. I would start by just echoing what Susan said to begin with, which is that this has been an unbelievably complicated year. We have had to manage things that none of us ever thought we'd have to manage, and I cannot say how appreciative and grateful I am for the work of Susan, everybody on the town side. My leadership team, building principals, have been remarkable in every way. Stephanie, I can't thank you enough for everything you're doing. And of course, all of our teachers, our faculty and staff have really done the hard work this year. We're back fully. Things are going great. It's definitely a little bit different this year, but I am so proud of everybody here in the district. They have done a remarkable job. And I just needed to start right there. I can't thank them enough. So Dave, if you'll switch the slide here, it's always important, I think, to contextualize the budget. 1 year's budget isn't sort of a 1 year thing. 1 year's budget is often a culmination of events and builds on the success of previous budgets and then moves the district forward. I kind of want to start by saying, I appreciate, and I know our students and our teachers appreciate all of the support that our taxpayers and our town leaders have provided in the past. It was because of that support that we received in previous budget years that we were able to absorb the effects of the pandemic, I think, far better than many of our neighboring districts. For example, even before the pandemic, the leadership in this town made the very wise decision to provide all of our students with a Chromebook. Thank goodness you did that. Because you did that, not even thinking a pandemic was coming, when it did, we were able to pivot very quickly from in-person learning to remote learning last March. I can tell you from personal experience and the conversation that I've had with superintendents and colleagues and my wife in other districts, many districts struggled incredibly at the start of the pandemic because they simply didn't have the devices to get out to their students. And as we remember, the supply lines were down. There were no devices out there to be had, even if you had all the money in the world to pay for it. But because of the remarkably wise leadership and investments that were made previously, Portland was very quickly able to adjust and support the needs of our students last spring, and then build on that as we headed into this year. In addition to those devices that we were so grateful for, we had been using that and training our teachers for a long time, updating their skills with the Google certifications and the training so that they could quickly adapt to this online environment. Now, they had to work very hard and had to sharpen those skills and apply them very quickly, but we had laid a very strong foundation for the work that happened last spring and has carried over into this year. We also last year, even before the pandemic, have been working hard to support students' social and emotional learning needs. We all know that we can't get to the higher self-actualization needs, the learning that happens, unless students are in a place where they are available to be educated. And that means they have to feel safe, they have to feel supported, they have to have all of those basic social and emotional needs met. We had been working on some SEL programming and enhancing some programs to support all of our students even before the pandemic. And I can tell you that those programs are even all that much more critical now because our students have gone through a traumatic experience. They have lived through a year that none of us had to live through growing up. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, we are seeing the effects of that. Our students have had to relearn socialization. And a lot of these programs that we had in place, we're now deploying effectively, and we do need to keep refining them as we move forward. And then, of course, we had done a lot of work in the area of curriculum and alignment so that we were able to pivot our teaching and learning effectively, not perfectly, from the in-person to the remote and the digital environment. So I would just start by saying, thank you for your support in the past. And it was because of that support that we've been able to maintain our success from last March when everything went completely sideways up until today. Next slide, please, Dave. So this year has been unlike any other. My goodness, as I reflect on the year, I cannot even believe what we put together and what we've had to do, right? So the first thing, we literally, for the first time, built an entirely new school in the town of Portland. You can't see it, it's a virtual school, but we have had somewhere on average between 180 upwards of 220 students that have learned and chosen to learn entirely online this year. So we built a pre-K through 12 online school district that we are calling the Portland Virtual Learning Academy. It has its own principal, our director of curriculum. It has its own staff. It has its own teachers. And every day our students are meeting online and being taught virtually. incredible. If you would have told me that I'd built an online school district, 6 months ago, I probably would have shaken my head a little bit, but it is going remarkably well. And it's certainly providing a need that our families are facing. In addition to the online school, we built 3 entirely different teaching and learning models. We have the full in-person model, we have a hybrid model, and we have a full remote model. Over the course of this year, we started hybrid, we went full in, we had to go remote for a few weeks, and now we're back. Then we went hybrid at the secondary school, and now we're finally back fully. So we've been back fully since the middle of January, K6, and we've been back fully now at the high school level since February 1st. All of these models are different, and they've required different funding mechanisms, different levels of support, different levels of teaching. And I've got to say again, our teachers are the true heroes in this. They've responded to all of these different models and been able to make sure that we're providing for a continuum of teaching and learning. And I think our students have directly benefited from that. So it's just been a tremendous year. It's been a really eye-opening, a little stressful at times, but I would say an all-around successful year. And then, of course, each of these models all require different levels of technology, different levels of infrastructure, different levels of support, and different levels of needs that reflect teaching and learning for all of our students at the various developmental and grade levels. So next slide, please. So the budget that I present to you tonight, I think, fairly recognizes the shifts that we've gone through this year, the disruptions that occurred all the way from last March and continued through this year. And I'm confident that if this budget is supported, it will provide us the resources that we need and the access to the people, the programming to help us begin recovery, to help us learn from what happened, to support students in their social, emotional, and academic needs, and then move forward. And it also builds a foundation. There are a lot of silver linings that are coming out of this. We have learned a lot of new ways to support teaching and learning. And I think it's part of our responsibility to make sure that we just don't default back to the way things always were, but learn from what we've been through over the past year and continue to grow. Next slide, please. So briefly, I just want to kind of get everybody focused on some of the things that the Board of Education and the leadership team, and all of the teachers have been focused on this year. We are a goal-driven district. And at the beginning of the year, we set out these 5 initiatives for us. The first one clearly being to maximize student safety and health in the context of an ongoing pandemic. I think you see evidence of that in the Portland Virtual Learning Academy, and you see evidence of that in the 3 models that we have that were designed to respond to peaks and valleys of COVID infection rates. The second thing we're focused like a laser beam on this year is the social and emotional well-being of our students. Again, as I mentioned earlier, our students have been through a traumatic experience. Our students have gone through something that none of the adults had to live through in our lifetimes. And we don't know what the long-term implications of that are. We're still learning, but certainly we have the programming and the supports in place, and I have a feeling we're going to be actively using them this year and in years to come to make sure our students are socially and emotionally well. And of course, for goal 3, there are gaps. I have looked at much of our student performance data. Frankly, our students are doing much better than I would have anticipated. That's a pleasant surprise for me. But there are some gaps in our student learning that occurred with the abrupt shutdown in March, and then some of the adjustments we've had to make this year. So we need to make sure that all of our academic programming is geared to make sure we can catch students up and move them forward from a teaching and learning and an academic gains perspective. The fourth goal that we set for ourselves is we want to make sure that we have a focus on equity and that we are advancing the interests of all of our students and that we are fostering civil discourse amongst our students. I have to give a shout out to our new Director of Curriculum Instruction and Technology. He has focused like a laser beam on this. I'm already involved in and seeing some of the fruits of these efforts. And, we're all trying to bend the arc of justice, arc of history towards justice. And I think we're making great strides here in our school district. And I really am looking forward to the years to come. I think we're gonna make some great gains. And then finally, the fifth goal. You'll likely be hearing more about this over the years to come. This is not a 1-year goal. I see this as essentially a 5 to 10-year goal. But last year we did commission a facility study, and we got a good look at what some of the needs are in all of our 5 buildings to continue to keep them current and up to date, and providing the type of environment that supports 21st century teaching and learning. We do have a working group together, a facility steering committee, that is starting to discuss and take a look at what the Portland Public Schools facilities and grade level configurations might look like in the years to come. We are in the very beginning phases of that discussion, but we have a lot more work ahead of us. And I think we're going to be able to put together a vision and an approach that meets the needs of the community heading forward. Next slide, please. So give you the past 3-year context. You see here the percent increases over the past 3 years, and then you see this year's percent increase. So we are asking for a 3.12% increase over the 2020-2021 budget. And that comes on the heels of a 2.26, 2.4, and then a 0% increase in 2019, 18, and 19. Okay, next slide, please. So in addition to the revenue streams from the local educational agency, from our property tax base, we have other revenue streams that we have available to us. So I thought I would start by giving you a picture at the grants, the special education funding that we receive, the equalized cost sharing grant that we receive from the state. And then right down there at the bottom are the 2 new ones that we received from the stimulus package that passed a month or so ago, and the one recently. We are going to have many conversations ahead about how we access and use these funds. We're starting to learn more about them. It's especially the very bottom one there. But certainly I couldn't be happier that funding has come on board. And I want to again echo what Susan said. It is desperately needed, and it is a blessing to have. If any of our state reps are on or listening to this call, thank you very much for your hard work to secure us this funding. I promise that it's going to go to good use, and it was certainly needed. Okay, next slide, please. So very quickly, I just want to run through quick overview of the numbers. We can get into more details when we get to our workshops, but I want to give you a sort of overview snapshot of what the budget looks like. So the largest item in any of our budgets is always people. It's always how much does it cost to pay our folks. So there are 2 groups of people that work in public schools, of course, those who are our certified faculty and those who are our non-certified staff. So in the area of our certified salaries, we're not adding any positions this year. I see this as a status quo year. We are making some adjustments within the positions, but we are not adding any new positions to this year's budget. You do a year to year, there is a contractual increase of 2.5%, 2.65% year over year. And then we're making some adjustments within our certified salaries line items. Specifically, we're going to have our athletic director teach some courses, and these are new courses that are required as part of new state graduation requirements, specifically an 11th grade health course. We're also going to realign some of our technicians, some of our clinicians. We're going to move them out of the IDEA grant, which is a special education grant, and our open choice grant, and bring them into the LEA budget. The reason we're going to do that is because these individuals are able to bill Medicare, but we can't have them in an IDEA grant, which is a federal grant, and have them bill Medicare, which is a federal program. So we had to make an adjustment, and Dawn Davis has overseen this. You'll see where we kind of make up some ground with this shortly, but we're going to reclassify 3 positions, and these are our clinicians to support some specialized programming that we provide in the district. Also, after the budget was adopted last year, we did add a position and a half. We added a special education teacher and a 0.5 social studies teacher. So we have to bring those into this year's budget because they were added after the budget was adopted last year. And then to offset some of these increases, particularly those two new positions that you see at the end there, the special ed teacher and the social studies teacher, the budget does include a request to reduce 2 classroom teaching positions. Next slide, please. In addition to our certified faculty, we have non-certified staff that works in the district. You'll see here the decrease. This decrease in particular, you'll see is reflected from the readjustment in the IDEA grant, which is our special education funding stream. So overall, there is a year-to-year general wage increase built into our non-certified salary line items. That is a 2.5% increase. We're offsetting that by decreasing this line item by 5.83% by eliminating 3 paraprofessional positions, eliminating 1 administrative assistant position that became open because of a retirement, eliminating our ECBE coordinator position at the high school, and then reallocating 3 paraprofessionals to the IDEA grant now that we've taken the 3 certified faculty out of it because they're able to bill Medicare. Next slide, please. Okay, so here you heard Susan mention the insurance premiums are going up. I have to say, Susan is a very intense negotiator and did a heck of a job getting us to a reasonable, well, I won't say reasonable, but a increase that certainly wasn't where we started. So good job, Susan. I wouldn't want to be negotiating against you. You are tough. I was in the room when you were there, and you got us some movement in that area. But we are hearing, and this is something I just want us all to be aware of. We're hearing from our insurance vendors that COVID could be a long-term cost. You know, the insurance companies are looking to increase their premiums because they're not sure how long COVID is going to be here, or unfortunately, and I know some personally, some people don't recover as quickly from COVID as others. For some people, COVID is a asymptomatic or experience where nothing happens. For some people, you get sick for a short period of time. And unfortunately, some people with COVID are sick for a long time. So we're starting to hear that insurance companies are looking at their actuarial tables and starting to make some adjustments, projecting some long-term COVID costs. And that's unfortunate. Next slide, please. Okay, here, these are our professional services. Generally, this is a 3.54% increase that reflects, I would say, the cost of living adjustments and some general contract based increases that we are experiencing heading into next year. I'll go through these quickly. I can go into greater detail during the workshop. So next slide, please. Again, the area of facility services. So I'll just point out here that this $291,000 line item, this is just to keep our facilities going, right? This is just to maintain it. It's not to do any major upgrades. This is what Carl and his crew uses to keep our 5 buildings safe and operating efficiently, and to manage our facilities. We have some longer term needs in the district, right? We have begun the process of looking at the sightlines report. We've formed the steering committee, and we're starting to take a look at some aging buildings and what needs to be done over the next really 1 to 10 years to make sure that our facilities are in tip-top condition to support teaching and learning. Next slide, please. And then other services, again, there's a slight decrease here. These generally reflect market conditions and some contractual increases in our other service line items. Next slide, please. Again, slight decrease here isn't just books and supplies. This is our heating, fuel, and a whole bunch of other general increases in supplies and things that we use every day. And again, I'm not going into a ton of detail here. I would certainly be interested if there are any questions providing specifics about what these line items consist of, but I imagine that might be more appropriate for our budget workshop. Next slide, please. Same thing here. Slight decrease in our buildings and equipment. This, again, line item reflects primarily technology hardware and technology software. This is actually a decrease now, and thank you, Susan, and thank you, Tom, for your work with us moving out the Chromebooks into the capital budget. Otherwise, this was a big increase here, but because of your support with that, it now reflects a decrease in the buildings and equipment line item, which does include our technology hardware and software. Okay, next slide, please. And then again, dues and fees. This reflects all of our memberships in CIAC and NEASC and all of the different organizations and agencies that our students are members of and our teachers are a part of. So we did have a 0% increase in our dues and fees, and we're going to hope that most of our agencies and organizations respect the fact that it's a difficult year because of COVID and are keeping their fees and prices the same. Okay, next slide, which I think is the last one. So here, Susan covered this pretty effectively. I think we, again, can't thank Susan and Tom enough for their creative thinking and approach to helping us be able to sustain the one-to-one device initiative, which is the Chromebooks. And by moving that into the capital lease program, again, it's going to give our students access to a stable supply of devices. And I can tell you that all of our curriculum instruction and teaching and learning is extraordinarily tech dependent, especially after our experience of the past year. So thank you for that. And also, as Susan mentioned, there is a capital investment to remove some oil tanks that need to come out of the ground. So one of the things I'll just end with is, as a Board of Education took a look at all of our capital costs for all of the buildings, and we sort of made a decision this year to put those things on hold until our steering committee has had an opportunity to absorb the Sightlines report and go through a process of taking a hard look at all of our facilities and sort of developing what will amount to a 3 to 5 to 10 year plan for the district that I think will hopefully get us to a point where all of our buildings, if they're all still used in 10 years, would support 21st century teaching and learning. So much more to come on that. We're only in the very beginning phases of that endeavor. Okay, I think that's everything, right? Yes. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Charles. As people are entering their questions in the chat, I just wanted to let everyone know that the workshop on March 17th, starting at 7, the topics we're going to be working on will be general government, finance to include debt, fringe benefits, liability insurance, transfers to other funds and all other budgets, and the library. The next workshop, which is slated for March 23 at 7 o'clock, will include the Board of Education, Public Works and their related funds, Grounds Maintenance Division, Parks and Recreation, and Long-Term Capital. The next workshop on the 24th is an open workshop, and it will be up to the selectmen to determine the content and whether or not they host that meeting. I would anticipate and suggest as an open workshop that we talk about those revenues that we mentioned during my presentation and during Charles's presentation in relation to the American Rescue Plan. On Tuesday, March 30, the selectmen will take all of the information that they have gathered and the input from the community, and they will begin to deliberate their final budget. That will continue into Wednesday, March 31, all of these meetings at 7 o'clock. And what will happen is they will likely have a tentative decision on the budget from the Board of Selectmen. So it no longer is the first selectwoman's budget, it's the full Board of Selectmen's budget. They'll have a lot more information by that point. And then Tom Robinson and I will go over all of the adjustments that the selectmen have made, produce a budget for the selectmen to vote on at the 7:30 regularly scheduled April 7th meeting. So that's the budget process in somewhat of a nutshell. On our website early on, I think it was in January, I had put up some slides that detail this process that's outlined in our charter. So if you have questions on that, that slide presentation is available on our website. And of course, if you have questions and you think of them after tonight, you can always email me or Charles or any member of the Board of Selectmen. We're happy to take your questions and do our best to address them and give you good answers. So I'll turn to Nick and see if there's any questions in the chat.
So we have one question from Bruce Graves, Freestone Avenue. He says, has the town considered consolidating the schools by closing one of the buildings? Would this be more cost efficient than continuing to repair and staff each building? That's all we have for now.
Can you tell me who that was from? I didn't quite hear you.
Yeah, it was Bruce Graves. I'll copy it into the chat so everyone can see.
Okay. Charles, do you want to take that question?
Nick, you were breaking up on me a little bit. It sounded like you said, would it be cost effective to close a building and consolidate? Is that correct?
Yes. If you want to see the full comment, I just posted it to everyone in the chat.
Oh, now you're coming in better.
See the exact words.
Cool. Whatever you said there, it's Bruce Graves. Okay, good question. So last year we commissioned a study, and the study came back with a pretty good overview of the capital costs to maintain the buildings over the next 10 years, right? So this organization identified some capital projects that need to happen in the next 1 to 3 years, the next 3 to 7 years, and the next 7 to 10 years. And certainly everybody who lives in Portland knows that many of our schools are aging, right? So some of the things in the Sightlines report weren't surprising. The question specifically about closing schools, I would caution us to say, if we were to do something like that, it would have to be done as part of a transparent process that gave everybody the opportunity to understand the ramifications, the cost savings, the benefits, and the how to close a school. Certainly, that's not going to happen in 1 year. That's not going to happen in 2 years. That would have to be part of a 3 to 5 to 10 year plan. So we do have a working group. We have a facilities committee that is beginning that discussion now. We have a long way to go to get there. The question specifically, would it save money to close a school, is maybe if done correctly, but we would want to make sure to do it correctly so that it didn't interfere with our ability to continue to provide high quality teaching and learning to our students, nor would it be jarring and disruption to the community with whom we haven't done the work necessary to educate and bring up to speed on why we were to do something like that.
That's all we have for questions right now.
Okay, if there's no further questions, then I'll ask, are there any further questions? And I usually ask one more time. Any further questions?
No, there's no more.
Okay, well, there'll be plenty of opportunity, as I pointed out earlier, for you to make comment. This is an opportunity for you to hear a little overview, but we welcome everyone to our workshops. And also, there's the old-fashioned telephone if you want to call. So with that, I will close the public hearing at 7:59 p.m. Everyone stay well, be well, and enjoy. Good night.
Let's see.
Okay, looks like we're all back. Is there a motion to reconvene? I guess we would need.
I
I'll
move
make
that
a
we
motion to reconvene.
All right, Tim,
I'm 8:02.
Meg, you second?
Yep, second.
Okay, is there a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
a second.
Laurel, okay, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second, is there a second?
I'll second.
Tim? Any comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Great. Next is audience of citizens.
We don't currently have any.
Okay, great. Student representative reports. Who'd like to go first?
I'll start.
Sharon, just to point out, we did miss the pledge allegiance. I don't know if we want to do that or not.
Is there a consensus as to whether,
I think we can just move on at this point. Let's just move on. Otherwise, this meeting's going to go late.
anybody else? Strong feeling one way or the other?
No.
Okay,
Thank you for reminding
back
us.
to you, Sean. Yes, thank you, Tim.
That's all right.
All right. So what I have to share is that the National Honor Society is currently working with former high school student Rebecca Tripp to establish a free tutoring program. And any high school student can volunteer to be a tutor to any interested student in the district. So that's pretty exciting. And next Wednesday, the juniors are going to be taking the SAT and the sophomores will be taking the 10th and 11th grade level PSAT. In the fall, they took the freshman level PSAT just as a baseline because of COVID, but they're gonna be all caught up come next Wednesday. And then finally, winter sports are beginning to wrap up this week, and the spring sport season is starting in about 2 weeks.
Great. Hi, Justin. Anything to add? He needs to be unmuted.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Sorry about that.
Hello. That's okay.
I only have a couple things to add. Tomorrow, tomorrow in the high school, we start our 3-day miniature spirit week that the Senate decided to have a little early this year as a bonus to our typical April spring spirit week because of the circumstances of the year. So tomorrow is our leap into spring day, where we encourage students to wear green and their favorite warm outfits, although we're no longer having as warm weather as we were having, unfortunately, but we're hoping it'll still get students in the mood. Thursday is our red out day in support of the high school basketball teams, who both have games this week against East Hampton, I believe, but I could be wrong about that. But the students will be wearing red to show their support for our basketball teams. And on Friday is our throwback outfit day, which was a very creative idea made by one of our student Senate members, where we encourage students to dress as they would have in middle school in 7th or 8th grade to see how much our styles have changed since then. So I'm looking forward to that one. I pretty much told the Senate I dress exactly the same as I did in middle school, but I'm looking forward to seeing how everybody else does. And my final update is just a quick notice on the senior prom this year. It's looking more and more like the traditional junior senior and prom will not be able to happen as usual, but the prom committee has been working very hard to come up with safe and fun alternatives. So some things they're considering right now are having a senior only prom at a venue, maybe possibly outdoors if the weather's nice, having a senior activity day as well as a junior activity day that would kind of go in place for that, or pursuing other activities later in the summer, and for the juniors even into fall of next year if they're interested. So they've been surveying each of the classes to get the students' opinions, and hopefully we can get something up to celebrate the end of the year.
Great. Thank you for the updates.
Thank you.
Okay, next is communication and updates from Dr. Britton. So an update on the school reopening?
Yeah, I have 3 things. One, well, hang on, I got to turn my computer down here. All right, so can you guys hear me okay? I'm getting some feedback in here. Okay, so I have 3 things, all good news, both that will take care of both the communications and the reopening update. So we'll get both of them done together. First, I again, get these, it works out perfectly. Right before these meetings, Russ Melmott always gives me the latest data on the infection rates of COVID. It's just mind-boggling to me how fast things have bottomed out in terms of infection rates in Portland. We are doing remarkable. So we went from the highest to the lowest. We are the lowest in the Chatham Health District with an infection rate of 8.4 per 100,000. We said again, 8.4. We've dropped from red to orange and are now yellow, right? We are back to infection rates that were right around the lows that we were looking at in the summer. It's outstanding. Now, just to give you some context, Colchester's at 11.7. They're considered orange. East Hatham's at 20.7. They're considered red still. East Hampton's at 15.0. They're considered red. Hebron's at 18.1. They're considered red. Marlboro's at 9. They're considered yellow. And we're at 8.4, which is just such good news for our town. Overall in the Chatham Health District, the infection rate is at 13.8. In Middlesex County, it is at 19.2 per 100,000. Hartford 15.3, and overall Connecticut 20.9. So Portland, whatever you are doing, keep it up. I mean, it is a really a good news moment there. The numbers look great. We want to be at 0, but we're certainly heading in the right direction. Also, in addition to having the lowest new infections rate, we at this point have the highest vaccination rate. So as of today, 28% of Portland residents have received at least the first dose of their vaccine. That compares with an average in the Chatham Health District of 25% and an average in Connecticut of 22%. So 28% of the population of Portland has received the first dose. I think that is a direct tribute, and I told them that today, to the incredibly hard work that Russ Melmet has been doing in getting those vaccination clinics going here at the high school and throughout the town to get the population or the people here in Portland vaccinated. He really deserves some tremendous recognition when all this is over. I promised him at least a steak dinner or something, but he has just been outstanding in every way. So that's all good news. As far as vaccination of our faculty and staff, so our first opportunity for our faculty and staff to be vaccinated occurred on March 6th when it was the 1-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccine. That was a rough one. I can tell you that Sunday was a rough day for a lot of people that got that Johnson & Johnson faculty. As a matter of fact, the Monday after, Colchester had to go remote for that day. They had such a large percentage of their teachers out with side effects from that vaccine. I got it on that day, and I can tell you the next day, Sunday, I wasn't feeling so great either. I bounced right back by Monday, but that was rough. I'm glad it's done, but it was a rough one. It was the side effects for that are real. So then we had last Friday, the 12th, our teachers who opted for that day's vaccination clinic received the Moderna. That's the 2-dose regimen. So we had a large number of our faculty. I don't have the exact number in front of me. Received the first dose of the vaccine, and the second dose for that cohort of individuals will be on April 9th. So we are still going to need the half day on April 9th to release teachers in the afternoon to go get that second dose. It actually works out well. I'm hearing that the second dose of the Moderna vaccine is the one where you're likely to have side effects that it would be a bad idea to have a second dose vaccination clinic on a Wednesday if you're expecting to have school on Thursday. But this works out well because that's the day right before our April vacation. So teachers will have the weekend and then the next week to bounce back. What that means for me is that I count 14 days forward from April 9th. That's when we're told that after the vaccinations, you can expect good, solid immunity from it. So we're starting to have some conversations, and I'm starting to take a look at our teachers who are on inverted teaching assignments and remote teaching assignments, and slowly we may be able to start bringing people back in person on a case-by-case basis, depending on what doctors recommend for those individuals as early as April 23rd. So it's happening. It's moving quick. Things are heading in a very positive direction. I also heard today on the DPH call that I think we can expect large numbers of people 16 and older to begin being able to schedule their vaccination appointments on April 1st, right? So it is about to open up. From what I'm hearing from DPH and what I'm hearing from Russ is that the vaccines are rolling in and that the governor is aggressively pushing up the time frame so that everybody in Connecticut, I think come April, is going to be looking at some abilities to schedule some vaccination clinics. So all good news. The last thing I want to share with you with respect to communications and updates, you heard it already, but I did put in our communications section of your Google Drive the letter that I received, and Sharon received one from Congressman Larson informing us of that $939,000 that we're receiving as part of the American, what is it called? American Relief Fund. American Rescue.
Recovery, I think.
American Rescue.
Oh,
yeah,
Rescue,
recovery.
American Rescue Plan,
Um,
yeah.
American Rescue Plan, yep. So Stephanie and I just today got a look at some of the strings that are attached to it, what we can use it for. I will say it's pretty expensive. We can use that for a lot of things. So we still have some work to do, and I want to study those guidelines that just came out. But you can anticipate over the coming months that we're going to be having some discussions about how to allocate those funds, how long we have to spend them, and how we should prioritize them to maximize their influence on the district. So I only have those three things for you tonight, and it's all very good news that I'm very happy to share.
Charles, could I ask you, do you have the data on how many of our teachers were vaccinated, at least with one dose, or percentage wise, or raw numbers?
Okay, so you cut out on me. I think I heard you ask me that how many were vaccinated?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So I'm not able to collect that data right now. It's I got to be very careful, right? So we're being advised right now by DPH not to ask that question or collect that data from our teachers at this point. I can tell you anecdotally, a large number. And I did off the record do some surveying, and I would say we were somewhere in the neighborhood of 11 teachers that were not just teachers, faculty and staff that were expressing some skepticism, but that was an anonymous general collection. I haven't gone out and asked the question directly, have you been vaccinated? Just because that is medical information from people, and I have to be very careful about what we collect in that context.
I'm just a little surprised if the clinic was run specifically for schools that they couldn't say, hey, you had 100 staff members get vaccinated today. That's all.
The number I heard was 1,400, but it was between all of the Chatham Health District towns.
Gotcha.
Any other questions? Okay, we'll move on to Director of Student Services report. Dawn with us? Oh, I see her.
Yep.
You have a small following tonight.
They didn't announce that we had the meeting either, so that was kind of unfortunate. People might have.
Oh, at the end of, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
They should have said we were going back to a Board of Ed meeting.
Hi,
Is
good
Dawn
evening.
unmuted? There she is.
Yeah, I should be, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you. I promised Charles I would keep it short and sweet tonight since we have a lot going on. So I'm just going to give you just a brief update on status of where we are in student services. Student services continue to be required across the board. Our numbers are pretty similar to last month. We have 214 students identified with IEPs. We have 15 students that are in the process of the referral and evaluation process, moving possibly into special education. We have 92 students with 504 plans. We have 43 students that are identified as EL, English learners. We continue to have 13 students outplaced. That's the same number we've had all year. We are excited to see many of our students that were in PVLA moving into in-person learning, that have special education needs or some kind of special needs. It's the PVLA people are doing a beautiful job, but it's really difficult to give some of that individualized service that students need, especially when they need to be working knee to knee with a practitioner in some way. It's much harder to do that on a Zoom. You all know the difference between being here on a meeting or being together in the library. It's a good substitute right now because it's what has to be, but we do have many students whose parents have felt comfortable bringing them back in. So our case managers and our related services people are very excited about that. We're continuing to build our programming and planning for next year. Our alternative programs in-house are moving beautifully. I spent an hour in the ABA lab this morning. It is amazing what I can see a child doing today that 2 months ago was not even verbal with us and now is talking, and he greeted me and said, "Good morning, Mrs. Davis," after his teacher prompted him. So it was very exciting. So our special programs are just moving along beautifully. You know, growing pains with the bridge program. It's a new program this year, so we're figuring out a few things, but we've got students being very successful in that K-6 therapeutic support program. Our preschool programs are filled back up and they're keeping really busy. And when you think about it, our preschool students have been in school the most regularly out of all our students in the district. When you think about a group or a cohort, they've been going, even when we shut down in January, they were in school every day. So our little preschool learners are doing a beautiful job. And we'll continue to work on programming as our students move back into district, and we're excited about next year. ESY is all set to go, extended school year. We're planning to be in person unless something changes and our world goes upside down again. We'll be in person at Portland High School and Valley View School. So that's all I have for a report tonight. Is there any questions?
No.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you as always.
You're welcome, guys.
Okay, we'll move on to new business. First is the ED 099 Healthy Food Certification for 2021-2022.
This was in your Google Drive. It has to be read in total. The motion has to be made, and then there's 2 considerations. So if anybody wants to make that motion and read that entire 3 paragraphs. I'll make a motion that this be read into, that the Healthy Food Certification for 2021-2022 school year be approved by the full board tonight. We need a second.
And that's, I'll second that.
Thank you.
Just to,
Go ahead, Tim.
just to understand what our intention is to approve consideration 1 and consideration 2. Is that correct?
It is. We participate in the federal program, and so this is the law that requires us to state exactly what we're going to serve and when we're going to serve it, and that it has to comply with the state standards. We do this every year.
Right.
So it's part of our wellness policy as well.
Feels like yesterday that we just did this.
I was sure we did it 2 weeks ago, and poor Meg Wright almost had a heart attack today when I asked her about it, but it turns out we didn't. So Tim, if you want to read it, since I
Do
thought
we have to read it in
You do. You
both
have to
the
read,
motion
yes.
and the considerations?
Well, yes. Yep.
Okay,
Can we
so
just
motion
include
to
the-
recommend to the full board that the Portland School District approve the following considerations as outlined in the SDE Operations Memorandum of March 2nd, 2021, requiring each local Board of Education or governing authority for all Connecticut public schools participating in the National School Lunch Program to take action annually to certify all food items sold to students separately from reimbursable meals we will or will not meet the Connecticut nutrition standards. Consideration 1, healthy food options pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 10-215F. The Portland Board of Education certifies that all food items offered for sale to students in the schools under its jurisdiction and not exempt from the Connecticut nutritional standards published by the Connecticut State Department of Education will comply with the Connecticut nutrition standards during the period of July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022. This certification shall include all food offered for sale to students separately from reimbursable meals at all time and from all sources, including but not limited to school stores, vending machines, school cafeterias, culinary programs, and any fundraising activities on school premises sponsored by the school or non-school organizations and groups. And consideration number 2, combined food and beverage exemption. The Portland Board of Education will allow the sale to students of food items that do not meet the Connecticut nutrition standards and beverages not listed in section 10-221Q of the Connecticut General Statutes, provided that the following conditions are met. 1, The sale is in connection with an event occurring after the end of the regular school day or on the weekend. 2, the sale is at the location of the event. And 3, the food and beverage items are not sold from a vending machine or school store. A quote event unquote is an occurrence that involves more than just a regularly scheduled practice, meeting, or extracurricular activity. For example, soccer games, school plays, and interscholastic debates are events, but soccer practices, play rehearsals, and debate team meetings are not. The regular school day is the period before to 30 minutes, is the period from midnight before to 30 minutes after the end of the school day. Location, quote unquote, means where the event is being held. That's a mouthful.
It is. I'll
So-
second it, so then there might be some discussion or questions.
Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Next is school security, which we'll be discussing under executive session and taking any potential action after that.
Correct.
CSDE Career and Technical Ed Recruitment and Retention Grant. Charles, did you want to bring us up to speed on that?
Sure. Yeah, this was a late submission. I apologize for getting it in so quickly, but Dylan and Corey need to get this to the State Department of Education by April 1st. So they filled out a grant and are asking for $7,300 or so. I can't find the paperwork here in front of me, for different monitors to support some split screen monitors for students. Again, I can't thank them enough for going out of their way to secure additional resources for our school. They do a ton of work with the Perkins grant and are always on the lookout. Dylan, I see you in there. Thank you for other opportunities to fund technology and things that we need for the school. So I would ask for a motion and approval to endorse this grant, and otherwise do so with appreciation extended to Dylan and Corey and our CTE teachers for actively looking for these funding sources.
I'll make the motion that we approve the Career and Technical Education Secondary Special Populations Recruitment and Retention Grant application.
There's a second?
I'll second.
Okay, any further discussion?
Just, if I understand this correctly, this is a grant to purchase monitors and hardware for a computer group. Is that right?
It's for it. You know how you can have two dual monitors. You
Right,
can have
yep.
a regular monitor, and then you can have a second monitor. This is to purchase second monitors, and it's part of for some students, multitasking on one screen is a challenge. So the two screens will help, as in sort of an assistive technology kind of way, help students toggle between assignments and navigate the career and technical education coursework.
And where do these, it's 45 monitors, right? So you already have 45 workstations and you're going to add 45 monitors to those workstations. Is that a correct understanding?
45, I'd have to look at the number.
Yeah,
it's
well,
a
that's what it says.
7,100
It says 45 monitors, 136, 42 each,
That's the
6,000 plus for the monitors, and then there's some hardware involved. It comes to like 7,000 something.
mounting brackets and all that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep, here it is. So it's
You don't want them
45.
to fall down once you buy them.
Right. Yeah, they have the brackets and mounting
Yeah.
poles and all the things that go with it. I'm sorry. So what was the question, Tim?
Well, just where is that in that the computer lab downstairs? It used to be. I'm trying to remember. They did the Project Lead the Way down there. They had a lot of computer stations and stuff. Is that where that's going to go? Is in the Portland high school?
The grant documentation says it's at the career pathway for information technology, STEM, communications, AV, and arts. So I think
Let
that's
me find out for you specifically which room.
where.
I thought Dylan could speak to that. He's here. He's on the grant, right?
Yeah, Dylan, are you monitoring this? You probably know.
Hi, Dr.
He's even
Britton.
unmuted himself.
Yeah, there we go.
So yeah, we currently have 45 workstations between my project Lead the Way Communications Lab and Corey Toussaint's down at the middle school. So between the two of us, we have our computers set up, ready to go. And he was able to find research that would support special education students and whatnot, having that second dual screen to reinforce some of the material and the content that's needed. So they could be working on their assignments for us, but also having possibly a virtual note sheet or a reference or something like that also currently in front of them.
Oh, nice. Nice, that's
Sounds
great.
good.
I didn't realize it was gonna, so they'll be installed in both schools in those resource labs, yeah.
Yep.
Any other
Great.
questions?
No, Dylan, this is great. Thank you so much for the
Yeah.
initiative.
Corey did most of the hard work.
Well, thanks to Corey also.
All right.
Any other questions? If not, I'll move the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay. Next is the CSDE Career and Technical Ed Recruitment and Retention Grant.
That's it.
That's
We
what
just
did.
did.
No, we just did that. That was,
That's
yeah.
what we
Sorry.
just did.
Okay, all old business. I have nothing listed. So we'll move on to committee reports. Curriculum.
So we had a meeting today. Let's turn to it. Eric gave an awesome presentation to the teachers about culturally responsive teaching and curriculum. It's kind of, dovetailing into what's going to be happening from an equity standpoint. Talk about limited curriculum writing happening this summer. And the reason for that is because there is the expectation that there could be an increase in need for teachers for summer school. So if we need teachers to be teaching more, they will be unable to be writing as much curriculum. There should be a teacher survey going out for interest by the end of the month about summer school. And that's it. It was a really fascinating presentation today. It was really cool.
Great. Policy.
Policy has a meeting scheduled for the end of the month with two policies in particular, a communications plan from Eric Martin and virtual meeting policy to continue and sort out what we're doing at future meetings when we go back to in-person.
Meg, are
And maybe-
those,
Okay.
No, go
Yeah,
ahead.
and you'll get some notices. There may be some other things that, under the other category, but those are the two major things that Charles wants on that agenda. We'll send out some stuff.
are those policies available to look at on the Google Drive?
Well, I'll put together and make sure that you get the policies that we were working on prior to, but I think the communication plan will drive some changes to some of the policies about how we communicate in many different areas. So I think we should hear the report from Eric first, and then we'll go from there. But you'll get some documentation as it's needed, and hopefully in the next week or so. I promise.
I think we can get in advance of the meeting that we could review.
Yep.
Would be
Yeah,
just so we can
absolutely.
kind of chew it around in our heads before we have to
Yep.
make
Yep,
chat
that's
about
gonna
it.
be-
Agreed. Okay.
That's going to be pretty complicated stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Personnel, we're meeting later this week and moving forward on some stuff. So probably in April, we should have some info to report to the whole board. Building and grounds.
Building and Grounds had a meeting yesterday with Carl, Stephanie, myself, Dave Murphy, and Dr. Britton. And we recapped the projects which will either take place during April vacation or over the summer. And basically, it was a recap of about 10 projects that we are all aware of that must be done. And then 3 or 4 more that are now either cited by the fire marshal, such as making sure that there's only one audible horn at Gildersleeve. Right now, there's 2 competing sounds, and that has to be one sound only. So that's got to be updated. Some dedicated telephone lines for each school for fire and emergency services. That's also mandated. But the list is basically, it was a pretty extensive list, and progress is being made on every front to do just the critical work. There was a discussion about the track not being able to be used this year by students, but will continue to be open to the public, and there'll be cones put up there. But the students will have to find other places to train and also to hold their meets. And there'll be more, I'm sure, on that as we go forward. That's it. The facilities task force meeting will meet in April, and then Carl will convene the building and grounds committee as needed, or in 2 months after the second meeting in May of the task force. It was a lot. It was a good meeting.
Okay, Conservation and Renewable Task Force.
No update.
Okay,
I can update that because that was part of the building and grounds update. Carl said that the engineering phase is now looking at the roof, the covering on the roof, and whether or not, you know, it needs to be beefed up or whatever the magic that engineers do. So it's still ongoing, and we'll have some more progress notes, I'm sure, as we move forward.
Craig.
Tomorrow they're meeting. There's a council meeting, of valuation of the director, and a policy meeting. And that's at 11, starting at 11 tomorrow.
Selectmen.
Nothing significant. You know, Charles did a presentation on the bus contract, and, you know, some of us were on there. That was about the only thing significant.
Okay, task force of, I think it's supposed to be on solidarity, or
I think
is it
it's, yeah, I think it is on,
okay,
yeah, the Solidarity Task Force, I think is what it is.
okay.
Yeah, April Graves was kind enough to send me an update. I had to miss the last meeting because I was at the diversity and inclusion, or not diversity, the inclusion group coalition. So what she wrote me was that at the last meeting, they decided to form a youth diversity group. And they're going to be inviting all youth members of the community that are interested in joining to attend a youth group on diversity. Talking about it's called Bringing Young Minds Together. It's going to be on Sunday, May the 2nd, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Now, she doesn't say here, but I'm assuming that's going to be a Zoom event, but I'm not 100% sure.
I think they're intending for it to be outside.
Oh, is it? Okay, so outside. And they're partnering with Mary Pont with youth services on that initiative, which is great. I think that's awesome. And they're going to be sending out information by the end of the week. They're going to send a flyer out so people will get a chance to see that. But that's Monday or Sunday, May 2nd from 11 to 1. And then she also reached out because I had a conflict, and she wanted to know going forward if we would continue to have a conflict with me being a liaison. And I do not have a conflict for the next meeting, but in May, I do have a conflict on May 11th. So I was going to ask if there was anybody who could be like the, you know, backup, kind of like with Crack with Meg and I, if someone could be a backup.
All right, why don't we put them on the April agenda, and anybody interested, you can think about it, and we can talk about it in April. That's a good idea.
That's good.
All right. As noted, I'm taking minutes tonight. Nancy was not available.
Okay, audience of citizens, do we have anyone who'd like to address the board?
There are none at this time.
Great, thank you. Any Board of Ed member comments?
I was just thinking, you know, and I know it's not our decision alone, it's when the town, but, you know, when we're going to be able to start in-person meetings again. I miss seeing you guys across from me at the table. I got to admit, this has been good, but it's just not the same.
You're right.
I would think that's why policy's gonna start talking about that. And I think there's some anticipation that the governor's executive order is gonna end in the near future. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
April or the end
I
of this
think it
month.
ends
or-
in May. I think it's
I-
ending in May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's coming to a natural conclusion, which
Mhm.
is good. Thank God. I get my shot the 24th.
Good for you.
Yay. Yeah.
That's good. So we'll be discussing that probably in April. Anyone else?
I had one comment, just to piggyback on what Meg said, that, because I didn't hear it come up, and I know, sure I was gonna hear from Charles, was the track, just so we're clear on this, is that it was already closed to track meets, but now it's going one step further and it's closed to
That's
all
correct.
student activities. And the reason why I'm bringing it up now is I was going to Susan Branfield's list there, where they're gonna get a fire truck, 2 cruisers, a dump truck, a pickup truck, a loader, and a bunch of other things. Sounds like they're getting a lot on their wish list, and we're not getting very much on that wish list. So I know last year they spent 800,000 of the revenue surplus, where they got a dump truck and they got a trailer. We got 2 new police cruisers and we got a bunch of stuff. So I don't know where Charles, or who's going to be. Are we going to speaking about that and trying to fight for some additional funds for? At a minimum, it'd be nice to get the track in there.
Thought the track was still in the budget.
It's not
That
included in
funded
the
this
capital
year
plan.
in capital.
To add to Dave's question or point, I had a question about if we have any estimates about what this will cost next year to have our track practices and meets in other locations, because that's not something that's factored into our budget. So do you have a sense of what that will cost us?
Not yet. So
Yeah.
there are 2 questions there. So the one about how much it will cost us this year to bus our track team to other tracks to practice. I'm still working on that. So I have to get back to Michelle Ianello. I'm not sure how many days a week it was. There are, ways to work out and run not on the track, but certainly they do need to practice on a track. And I know Michelle was talking about reaching out to some neighboring communities about using their track. Hopefully they'll give it to us free, but there would be certainly an expense of busing our students over to those. Let me find out how much that would be, how often they're going to be bused, and I'll let you know about that. Specifically to Dave's point, Stephanie and I have been having a lot of these conversations. We have some emails in to the state, and we're starting to get guidance about how we could use some of this federal funding, right? So I think the track is still an open question. I think we don't have any answers right now, but everybody is aware that it's a need, and we're hoping. So I think now that we have these additional revenues coming in, now that we're from the 939,000 from the recent round, we still have the 300,000 from the first round, and Stephanie's starting to look at what end of year savings we might be looking at. I think it will be a topic for discussion, and definitely it is a need. Everybody recognizes it, and the conversation is alive.
Yeah, and this just came up. Carl was just walking because now things are starting to thaw. He went out and walked with several people and looked at the damage that is ongoing. And so this just occurred in the last week or so. This is all new information as to the fact that now we can't use it at all. Gym classes can't use it either. So there'll have to be alternative places for the gym classes to run. But I'm sure we'll get some more information as we get it. The other thing, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No,
No, I was
no,
gonna
go
say,
ahead,
my
Deb.
last opinion is I was on that meeting and Carl's gonna order a bunch of yellow or orange cones to stick out there, but we're not gonna close it to the general public.
Right.
I personally think we should close that thing to everyone. If we're gonna close it to the kids, then it's not safe for the general population. And that also needs to send a message that this needs to be fixed. Because if you leave it open and people can still walk it, because hey, this isn't a problem. Just my opinion.
Yeah.
I do think it would be helpful to know before we go into our budget workshop next week. It would be helpful to know what the anticipated expense would be next year to be operating athletics and PE and all of this without access to the track.
And I don't think I'm speaking out of turn, but and maybe Carl can speak to this, but one of the problems is that there are very few companies that can do this. We can only do it in the summer when the temperature is correct, because you can't put down blacktop and you can't redo do these things when it's cold. And the other problem is that if it's a huge chunk of money, if we don't find the funding, and we have to wait for a bond issue, it potentially could push the use of the track by students out to 2025, 2026. So, it's critical to the student life, and the health and wellness as well. I mean, that's all part of it. So this is important, but I think we have to let Stephanie and Charles see where the money comes in and what's left, and see if we could possibly fund it with a little help from our friends on the town side.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I would just like to say that we had our first meeting, Tim as well, with the Equity and Inclusion Coalition.
Oh,
Correct?
right.
I feel like there's so many different equity, diversity, include. It's hard to keep track, but it's the coalition. It was really, really well done. The facilitators did an absolutely fantastic job in terms of, it was a 2.5-hour meeting, really well thought out, well planned. The Zoom breakout rooms were awesome. We got to meet with, like groups, and as well as I got to meet with 7th and 8th grade students. All of the students, the students were awesome. They were so passionate, so intelligent. It was such a great representation of the kids in our district. It's going to be a really, really awesome thing for our schools and for our town. So what a great opportunity. I'm really excited to be getting to do it.
Great. That's good.
Yeah,
to hear.
I want to echo that as well, because it was 2.5 hours, but I have to say it did not feel like it was that long because of the way they structured it with the breakout group and getting to meet new people I had never known, and everybody was just wonderful to talk with, and it led to some really good talk.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Yeah.
I'll make sure that
Actually,
you guys
you and I
get
were in a room
added in.
together, right, Lauren?
We were one time.
Yeah, one of them.
I'll make sure that Meg, when we do the agenda, that's added into the liaisons,
I
so
think
that
would be great.
report will be expected every time. Good.
I think that'd be great. We meet once a month.
Once a
so,
month. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Great. Well, if Sharon, you want to I'll make a motion that we move into executive session for the purpose of school security planning, and invite Carl Johnson and Dr. Britton to the meeting.
Second.
And can we invite
Okay, all in
Stephanie
favor?
too?
Oh, I'm
Invite
sorry. And
Stephanie.
Stephanie. I'm sorry, Steph.
Do we really want Stephanie in? Kidding, Steph.
We better have her because she's got the money.
That's right.
All right.
All in
Thanks.
favor?
Aye. Okay, the time is now
Okay.
8:47. See
How
you
do I
on
get
the
there?
other side. We're gonna see where it says
Okay,
join.
I see it. Yep.
We're going to
Okay, looks like we're all back.
Hello, hello.
Everyone but Laurel, sorry, has been, okay, Laurel's unmuted. Okay, so I'm gonna move that we request from the Board of Selectmen a bid waiver for the Portland Public Schools to utilize Unitech Sound and Security LLC as the vendor to supply and install security upgrades.
Second.
Who said that?
Laurel,
Laurel.
Laurel, thank you.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I move that we adjourn this meeting.
Thank you, everyone.
There's a second?
Second it.
All in favor?
Hi.
Aye.
Night.
Thank you.
Happy
Good
St.
night.
Good night,
Patrick's
everybody.
Day.
Night.
Happy St. Patrick's
Bye.
Day.
Happy
Bye.
St. Patrick's Day.
Bye.